Okay, we're going to hit another one with these trig identities. Let's see what we got here this time. We have sine theta times sine squared plus cosine squared theta over cosine theta. And we want to simplify that and come up with one of these answers. So again, as we talked about in the last video, theta, sometimes this throws people off. It's just an angle. So theta is just an angle that we don't know. If you want to think of it, just think of it like x. It's just an unknown. And so what identities did we say we want to make sure we know? We want to make sure we know sine squared plus cosine squared is 1. We want to make sure we know that. And we also want to make sure we know tangent is sine over cosine. Right? So we want to make sure we know that as well. So having said that, when you look at this, what are they going to bait people into trying to do here? They're going to try to bait you into distributing, in which case you'd have sine times sine squared, that's sine cubed, and then sine times cosine squared. That's a mess. And so if you're just familiar with this stuff, it makes this a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier when you look at the answers too. Let's say you don't know how to do this, you have nothing, you're going to want to guess. You have to, I can't emphasize this enough, you absolutely have to guess stuff that looks simple, to get to. Sine cubed of theta, how are people going to get to that? That seems a little bit outrageous. Again, like I said in the last video, if I see anything with a sine squared and a cosine squared, you throw your hands up, you say, I don't have any clue, I would just guess 1. But I don't know if 1's right here, but it's not a bad guess. So let's see what this is though. Well, as soon as I see that sine squared plus cosine squared, heck, I know that's 1, right? So really, if this is just 1, isn't it just sine over cosine? Which again, that's not there. You're just going to have to know. This one, you just have to know them. Tangent is sine over cosine. Thank you very much. The only other thing you could do here, is if you're not comfortable with this, you don't know the identities, again, what we like to do with some of the algebra when we see an x is we sort of plug in our own number and we go from there and we create our own example. You could just make theta an angle. Put your calculator into degrees, make theta like 30 degrees and see what you get. So you'd have the sine of 30, the sine squared of 30 plus the cosine squared of 30 over the cosine of 30. Now certainly this is the really long way to do it, but if you had some time, you would get it. You would absolutely get it. You would just, the sine of 30 is a half, square that, the cosine of 30 is root 3 over 2, you put that in there. If you put all this in there, eventually you get a number, and that would be the actual tangent of 30. It's one way to do it. I don't suggest that. If you have nothing, I would do that. Again, I would just make sure I knew those two.